Chelsie used to wait tables at a diner just off a lonely highway in northern Montana, the kind of place that looks charming by day but unsettling at night, especially during the winter months when the darkness stretches on forever. The diner, aptly named the Hitching Post, closed at 2 a.m., and Chelsie often worked the closing shift. It was mostly quiet, truckers grabbing late-night coffee, or locals stopping by to avoid cooking for themselves. Nothing ever seemed out of the ordinary. Until that night. It was mid-February, and the chill outside was bone-deep. That night, there were only two of on staff, Chelsie and Joe, the cook. Around 1:50 a.m., a man walked in. He looked about 50, heavy-set, with high-waisted jeans, a brown jacket, and a mustache that seemed to belong in another decade. His glasses reflected the fluorescent lights, hiding his eyes. He smiled as he asked for a table. Something about his smile made Chelsie's skin prickle, but she pushed the feeling aside. People are quirky out here. Chelsie handed him a menu and mentioned the kitchen would be closing in 10 minutes. He ordered a black coffee and French toast. Simple enough. As Joe prepped the food, the man, he introduced himself as Harold, started making small talk. Small talk wasn't unusual for her. She is from the Midwest originally, where everyone loves to chat. But Harold's questions felt off. Too specific. Where was she from? Did she live nearby? Chelsie dodged most of them, sticking to vague answers, polite but firm. When his food was ready, she brought it over, glad to have an excuse to step away from the conversation. As Harold ate, Chelsie wiped down the counters and stacked chairs. She kept an eye on him, though. Something about the way he moved, deliberate and slow, made her stomach knot. Finally, Harold finished his meal, paid with a credit card, and left. Joe and Chelsie locked up around 2:15 a.m. She was parked out back, her old sedan, one of only 2 cars left in the lot. As she walked to her car, she noticed another vehicle, an older silver sedan, parked just at the edge of the lot near the highway. Chelsie hadn't seen it earlier. The windows were so dark she couldn't tell if someone was inside. A strange feeling crawled over her, but she told herself it was just another late-night traveler. The drive home was uneventful at first. The diner was about 20 minutes from the apartment, and the highway was desolate. About halfway there, her dashboard lit up with a warning. Tire pressure low. Chelsea's heart sank as she felt the car wobble, the steering wheel jerking slightly. By the time she pulled over, the tire was completely flat. She stepped out into the freezing night, her breath puffing in front of her. The tire was shredded, far too damaged for it to be a coincidence. That's when she saw the headlights in the distance. A car approached slowly, pulling up behind her. The knot in her stomach tightened as Harold stepped out, his smile eerily unchanged. He was wearing gloves now.
"Chelsie, is that you? What a coincidence."
His tone was too cheerful, too practiced. She didn't respond, just got back into her car and locked the doors. He tapped on the window, still smiling.
"Need some help?"
he asked. Chelsie cracked the window just enough to speak.
"No, thanks. My boyfriend's on his way."
It was a lie, but she hoped it would deter him. His smile faltered for a second before he leaned closer.
"Boyfriend? Huh. Ah ha 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 ha. Well, I can't leave a lady stranded."
He walked around the car, pretending to inspect the damage. Her hands trembled as she dialed 911, keeping the phone on her lap and whispering her location to the operator. When Harold came back to her side, she told him again that help was on the way. This time, his smile was gone. Without a word, he stepped back, and before she could react, the driver's side window shattered. Glass sprayed everywhere as Harold reached inside. She screamed, clutching the steering wheel, convinced he was going to pull her out. Instead, he grabbed her phone and hurled it into the darkness. Then he ran. Chelsie sat there, shaking, too stunned to do anything but lock the doors and wait. Her only light came from the flickering high beams of the car. Minutes crawled by until she heard the blessed sound of sirens. She stumbled out of the car, waving her arms as 3 patrol cars pulled onto the shoulder. The officers were kind, reassuring her as she recounted what had happened. They changed her tire and offered to escort to her home. She described Harold in detail, down to the high-waisted jeans and unsettling smile, and they promised to investigate the diner's surveillance footage. A week later, Chelsie got a call. They'd reviewed the footage, but Harold's car was unregistered, and his credit card info was fake. They believed he'd been stalking her for at least a week before that night. She quit her job at the diner and moved a month later. To this day, she checked her rearview mirror more often than she should, haunted by the thought of Harold's smile in the dark.